Others have more options than ever to get published, but you've identified the four distinct paths for us. So, can you tell us exactly what are the four paths to publishing? And if you can, walk us through how they're different.
Yeah, there are four clear paths. The first one is what I call DIY, where
Hmm.
you just do everything yourself. And you now have that opportunity to upload your cover, format your book, and do everything yourself. And what I tell people, if you're going to do that, you need to be really confident in your skills. And so you want to make sure that if you've never designed a book cover, that your book is not your first one, because we've seen some pretty hideous covers out there, but you do have the opportunity to do that. The second option is what I call the general contractor path.
Hmm.
And that is where you don't do everything yourself, but you use resources that you can easily avail yourself of to make sure that you put out the best product possible. So you might choose to work with an organization like yours in first editing to make sure that your book is edited. And then you
Hmm.
could find a cover designer, and then you could get your ISBN, and you can use different distribution methods to put it out. And you can decide whether you want to do an ebook or a print book. So basically it's you're not doing everything yourself, which frankly I don't advise people to do that, because you're going to need an editor and you're going to need a book designer. So you coordinate those tasks yourself. So
Hmm.
that's the first two paths. The third path is what we call supported or assisted self-publishing, and that's where you work with one company that has all the services that you possibly could want and need to get your book done. And so an easy way to think about this is it's like making and eating a meal. So making and eating a meal, DIY is like making and eating a meal at home. So it's
Hmm.
dependent on what you have in your pantry or your refrigerator and how good you are as a cook. And what I always say is, if you're going to come over to our house to dinner, make sure you find out if my wife's cooking or if I'm cooking, because you'll get two different outcomes, right? Same thing with DIY. General contractor is like going to a deli. There you've relied on someone else's time and talent and resources to prepare options for you. You're still in control, and your dollar investment will probably be a little bit greater than if you make meals at home, but you might get a better outcome in terms of what you have as choices and what the food tastes like.
Hmm.
Supported self-publishing is like going to a restaurant. You have a menu of items that you can choose from, and you're in control of what you spend. You can spend $30 on dinner, or you can spend $300 on dinner. But most importantly, you're the one who's choosing, and you're being provided service to make sure that everything's taken care of. So, just as you think about that analogy, you're probably going to have a greater investment of time making and eating a meal, and you're probably going to have a greater investment of dollars in working in or eating in a restaurant. So it's not one or the other is better or worse. It's just they're different based on what you're trying to accomplish. Then the fourth path I referenced earlier, that's the traditional publishing. And that's the one that most people are most familiar with and they probably aspire to. And that is where you need to get an agent in most cases, and then you approach a traditional publisher. And what you do in that, and what differentiates it from the first three, which are all self-publishing, is you assign your rights to someone. So
Hmm.
that that's a different path, and it's not wrong or right. And for some people, it's the best path for them, and it's what they aspire to. And I think the most important thing, which I think is oftentimes a misperception out there, is some people say, well, if you self-publish, then you can never picked up by a traditional publisher. I would say 10 years ago that was probably true.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Traditional publishers are constantly looking for self-published authors that have a really well-written book and have started to build a platform and build an audience, and they'll absolutely pick that up. So, and that's the most important thing. No matter which path you choose,
Mhm.
make sure you write and edit and design the best book you can possibly put out there.
Exactly, exactly. It's just being prepared, and it is a little interesting to know that the rights and how the ownership of your book is always a good question whenever you're engaging with anyone, to make sure you know exactly how that's dealt with, because you know that is of course your baby, so you want
Right.
to know who owns it and what that can happen. And it can be difficult. There are horror stories out there, but then there's also those wonderkins who've come out of nowhere they were self-publishing and then poof, off they
Right.
went. So that's the advantage of having been around the last 15, 20 years of all of this, the very beginnings and then the huge wave of self-publishing and all the differences that are out there. And I would mention that, you know, artificial intelligence and the softwares that are out there combined with the knowledge that we're getting even as general editors is creating a huge difference in the quality. But not only that, it'll help you better with your quality, but it's also more competitive overall. So you really need to approach whatever path works for you.
Right.
And so that's a little difficult. And as you said, it can be different times.